market is hot right now. According to Snoop Dogg, though, you should drop it. And that's exactly what's happening. The market is dropping right now. And let's talk about the worst case scenario. Because it is, for the people that were fully holding right here, that's a waste. You have to go through that then. Right? Selling now depends on what your target is. In this video, I want to give mine. For the people that still have cash, though, this is actually pretty cool because everything is lining up that things are going to go way higher and that cycle isn't over. But in the meantime, we get a good opportunity. And I know there are some perma bears out there and they say, nah, it's going to shit. 4-year cycle and it's over. Maybe, but maybe not. Have we also considered that? Because let's take a look at that. You see that like button? You're not going to do it, but do it. Or don't do it. Or dislike twice. Whatever. I'm fine. So what I think about the 4-year cycle, because that's basically the narrative that we have to say that it's now going down, right? Like, it's a 4-year cycle and that's it. Okay, that's cool. Because based on the amount of the drop, right? Like, it's like 35% right now. Yeah, we have seen it here. We have seen it here in previous bull markets. We have seen it a lot of times. So, nah, that's not really the problem. It's more like when this drop is happening. And I honestly think that this is somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I made a tweet about this for the people that are interested in this, because what is the reason that it is dropping right now? You know, you can take a look at all kind of macro factors, etc. But overall, I think that this plays a big role. We are not seeing a correction because the cycle is over, but because people think the cycle is over. The self-fulfilling prophecy aspect is pretty real. If enough people believe in the 4-year cycle and they start to take profits around the expected top timing, then it can create selling pressure. And that's kind of what we are seeing right now. But there is one thing. Self-fulfilling prophecy breaks when the underlying conditions don't support them. And in my opinion, that's kind of what we're seeing right now. I went through the, 2013 a little bit, but I went through the 2017 bear market. I went through the 2021, or bear market, sorry, to the 2021 bear market. This is not the typical bear market. Why? Because it's not the typical cycle. And I know that a lot of people don't believe it. Doesn't matter what I say. But for the people that do believe it, you know, stay tuned, because it is actually maybe like I said, that this is what a max pain is going to be. And it's not necessarily going to be to the downside, I think. Although Bitcoin can drop to 70K, that's fine. But if you expect a regular bear market without having a regular bull market in the first place, then how logical is that? Right? But the underlying conditions, look, if the liquidity remains strong, right? The M2 going up, the rate cuts continue. Powell is going to leave office. That can only get a lot better. If the ISM doesn't collapse, well, it's already kind of at the bottom, so I don't know, then the dips will be bought aggressively. And I know that, you know, if you're bearish, you'd be like, but where's the buying, right? Let it drop. Let the bears have their moment. They don't have a lot like in this cycle. So let it play out. It's fine, right? But top callers, they will get frustrated and capitulate back in. The narrative, it shifts from we are at the top to this cycle was different. Whatever you believe, at least use the right data to believe that. I think that's really important right now, because there are the funny thing about this whole drop, and try to consider this, is that I see a lot of people say, well, the drop is because of the 4-year cycle, right? Now, I spoke a lot about why the 4-year cycle is likely not even a real thing in the first place, but let's say it is, right? Then you can look at Bitcoin and be like, okay, is this the 4-year cycle, right? What is part of the 4-year cycle? The euphoria stage, the parabolic stage, right? We haven't seen anything like that. Bitcoin goes up, it goes sideways for a long time, up sideways for a long time, up sideways for a long time. That's what Bitcoin is doing. What else is part of the 4-year cycle? Alt season. We haven't seen that as well, right? If you look at altcoins on the Bitcoin pair, this is the chart. Where was our alt season? We had one here, 2021, 2017, but not in this cycle. Also, if you look at others, everything outside of the top 10, By the way, fucking awesome fractal, by the way, from 2019. And to be honest, it looks a lot like 2019, this cycle. But apart from that, if you look at others, then you see right here, the top was in December 2024. So for the people who believe in a 4-year cycle, I assume that they believe that this goes make a new high somewhere between now and 2 months, right? Otherwise, this was a 3-year cycle. So there goes the 4-year cycle idea. Now, apart from what I said, like the 4-year cycle, it's called a theory for no reason, right? Because yeah, we had a top 4 years earlier, we had a top 4 years earlier, we had a top, and 2 years earlier, we had a top. So that wasn't 4 years in the first place. And so I do think that, hey, if this cycle is apparently not playing out like a regular 4-year cycle, like we have seen 3 out of the 4 times so far, then consider that the bear phase that that we are in right now is not a regular bear market as well. Start to see it like this. We always go into a 80-70% bear market, right? But it's also after that Bitcoin made like insane gains. So that happened like not really this cycle. So why would we go into a typical 70% bear market, right? Without a black swan, 40K, I'm pretty sure that that's not going to happen. So what could be the bottom? Because there are now people that seem to believe like, no, we are in a regular bear market and you don't want to catch a falling knife. And I know how this works because I've been here last time or whatever. I watched the video or whatever, right? On the other hand, keep in mind that if the cycle apparently is moving completely different than what it did in the last 3 cycles, then the bear market could also move different. And again, I'm not saying that this time is different. I'm saying that this time it's kind of just following again. If you look at the ISM, the business cycle, right? It called 4 out of the 4 tops, not the 4-year cycle that called 3 out of the 4. And if you look at the ISM where it's sitting right now, then I wonder, like, hey, if this goes down, which I don't see why it would, but who knows, anything could happen. But how far that would take Bitcoin down, actually. Because so far, Bitcoin always only went into a full bear market when the ISM completely tanked from the top to the bottom range. Yeah, if we're going to top from the bottom range to it slightly further in the bottom range, then I wonder, right? So that makes me think like, okay, what could the bottom be in this case for this move? Now, also keep in mind, this has been going pretty fast, right? Whenever something moves up very fast or moves down very fast, then it stops at a certain point and has a big reverse candle, right? Here, for example, Bitcoin kind of went parabolic, and it stayed there for a while, and then it kind of gave up. And that's kind of what we are now seeing to the downside as well. So overall, I feel like, okay, try to set your target based on what's most realistic, and then look where we are right now and come to the conclusion like, well, should we sell right now? Like, I don't know. I'm not selling. I bought yesterday, the day before yesterday or whatever, and today it's down another 6% my portfolio. Fuck, man, fuck. I tried to time the bottom and it didn't work. No, it's called DCAing, right? And that's cool. That's fine. There's nobody that in his right mind is waiting the complete downtrend, bear market, correction, crash, whatever you want to call it, waits for the exact bottom and goes all in right there. That would be a ridiculous move, right? And very lucky. But that doesn't happen like that. So I'm now like, okay, overall, the market looks like it is not done. But this might be some kind of a form, like we said earlier, of 2019, right? And in 2019, yeah, eventually without COVID, right? Black Swan, you could always expect a Black Swan, but, then you should not be in financial markets anyway. COVID went down 50%, right? Not saying that we will right now, like we had a different run up this time and all of that. But overall, if I look at it, now look, if you were here calling for a bear market, then of course at this point you could say like, I was right, but eventually, were you? It depends. Like it's and screw being right or wrong. It's more like, okay, what are you gonna do with it, right? And I said like my target, my worst case target is 70K. It's 82 now. Yeah, look, if 70K is going to play out, then we're going to go down with, I don't know, another 10% or so. Yeah. Is that worth selling? I don't know. I don't know. I always said, I'm in crypto, I'm in cash, I have a good cash position. And that makes me quite happy during this correction because there are alts and BTC now as well, by the way, but there are mainly alts that I look at like, whoa, they are cheap. And I know how it works. They can get cheaper. Sure, definitely. That's why DCA. I said that like all the time. You don't go all in. You don't go all out. Right? Maybe in a real bear when everything and macro and everything is lining up, you could be like, okay, fuck it. I'm out for a couple months. But overall, mostly you do not go all in. Right? So there are entries right now that I feel like, whoa, they are looking quite juicy, actually. So that's for another video. But the main reason why I think that 70K is on the table, I had a couple reasons. It's the average cost of MicroStrategy. And I must say that everybody that now says like, well, it's over, these are mostly the same people who are saying like, well, it's based on institutions only. Well, if it's based on institutions only, then they will do something right here. Apart from that, there are multiple ways to look at it. You can look at the Fibonacci retracement, and then you can see that the 0.5 comes in at 71, the 0.618 comes in at 60. That's a big region in between. So this has something to it. And there are a couple of things that makes me think like that, 70K is definitely doable, actually. But then again, I also feel like, man, maybe we should not be way too bearish right now because, like, who was bearish here? Like, fucking nobody, right? And then you go down with 35% and then people turn bearish. And that's fine. If you were bearish over here and you sold right here or you shorted right there, then I can only say, hey, nice job. Like, great, right? But watching this happen and then selling it right here, it feels to me like watching this happen and selling it right here. Like it might go down, but there's a lot of upside at that point, right? But all in all, this is not a typical bear market. For me, it is pretty clear. Does it mean that, like, again, things won't crash correct in the meantime? Yeah, sure. Like, of course they will. Like, that's what's happening right now. And that's a pretty fine thing, actually. Right? If you are prepared, if you are in cash, if you feel like, hey, the broader picture of the market doesn't even look that bad. And one of the great indicators is sentiment, right? Sentiment sucks. Sentiment sucks really hard. Right? And in the bear's defense, sentiment sucked a couple weeks ago as well. Definitely. And things went down after that. But sentiment is not a bottom indicator. It's a bottom area indicator. Sentiment sucked over here as well. Right? And eventually it went here. So you could say like, well, you should listen to sentiment. You know when sentiment was more terrible? Here. Like these people eventually, they get wrecked if they trade based off of their emotions. And now, again, 4-year cycle, yeah, if you ask me, that's completely off the table. And I wonder, like, if it plays out like I think it's going to play out, I wonder how many people are actually going to take note of that, right? Because what if we now do something like this, right? We have a big crash. Eventually, that gets bought up. We get a huge candle to the upside again and then gets sold off again and maybe goes a little sideways until April, May, whatever. And then we are here or here even, doesn't matter, right? We're something there. And then the market starts to recover because everything like macro and all the reasons that we gave before. Then the market starts to recover. Then they're going to do a lot of rate cuts. ISM shoots up. And then we get that parabolic move, right? Yeah, will people then... This drawing is not a prediction, by the way. I hope you understand that. But if we then are here somewhere, do people then look back at this period and are like, yeah, that was a bear market. And in their defense, they could say like, well, it was a bear market which was shorter and more tempered and all of this and that. Then again, can we call that a bear market, right? Or right, like again, like was this a bear market? This is what like this was a bull market with a big fat correction in between, right? In my opinion, at least. But hey, whatever the definition might be, right? Overall, if we should call this a bear market, if such a move, then sure, we are in a bear market, right? But in my opinion, that's not the definition. So in that case, I feel like, man, this is to be bought up. When could we maybe see a local bounce or bottom or a final bottom? This is a level that we need to keep in mind, 3.82 on the Fibonacci. And we are kind of there for the USDC and the USDT dominance, right? Now, this is one of the things that I'm watching right now. If we, let me get it to the top actually. If we sustainably, like for a week or 2 weeks, break above this, I'm like, guys, we're going to the golden zone, right? We're going to the 5 to the 618. It's somewhere over there, right? And then you can kind of measure like, okay, how far from the 382 is that? That's around 14. And if we go all the way there, 14 to 30%. Yeah, then you start calculating like, okay, calculating. Okay, this move was kind of the same, right? The move over the last 3 weeks, give or take, 3 weeks. And then just look what Bitcoin did over the last 3 weeks. And you're not going to like that, right? Then you could be like, well, Bitcoin, it went down with 25%. Let's go another 25%, right? Possible. Bringing us to 60K. But I doubt it. I don't know. In the meantime, though, look, a lot of people, they simply don't know, right? And they, for me as well, I don't know, right? A lot of people don't know, and they feel like, okay, this makes sense. That reason, right? For me, it's the same, right? For me, it makes no sense at all to believe that we are in a typical bear market. Because again, the 4-year cycle has been proven wrong already, actually. And then we should look at like, okay, what is driving it? And it looks to be the business cycle, the whole liquidity cycle. Like why would we say like, well, the broken astrology theory is what we're going to stick to? But the more accurate actual liquidity cycle that explains why there's money in the system in the first place, yeah, that's not what we're going to look at. That's simply weird, right? So that's simply what I'm looking at mostly right now. And I made a, like I said, good purchase 2-3 days ago. And now I'm waiting, right? Like, I know that people like to come in YouTube comments because hey, the market goes down, and they blame me and other YouTubers for that because, I don't know, makes them feel better about their own recklessness or whatever. But I'm like, you can come and try to find a reason why I mind a drawdown, but that is called DCAing. Right? That's called DCAing. So I bought, and that's now 6% down. And if it goes down to a further target, I'm gonna buy more. It's different than catching a falling knife. Right? If you catch a falling knife, you just say like, I'm gonna buy here, I'm gonna buy here, I'm gonna buy here, I'm gonna buy here. Then you DCA your way down, right? Like I feel like, man, that's maybe a little, I bought here somewhere, right? If it goes like my ultimate target, I'm gonna buy there. And if it goes below expectations, I'll always keep cash for that. Right? Because eventually it will go up again. Fuck that, right? It's all good. Yeah, meantime, Bitcoin dominance, like, it's going down a little bit with it. So overall, Bitcoin is taking the biggest hit right here. Ethereum is taking a decent hit actually, because Ethereum on its Bitcoin pair, that's really going down. Now you have to pay attention to the right charts, right? Because the Bitcoin dominance is showing how Bitcoin does against everything. But if Bitcoin goes down against the dollar, then the Bitcoin dominance also goes down. So you might feel like, hey, Bitcoin dominance goes down. Yeah, because Bitcoin goes down. Not because other assets are outperforming Bitcoin necessarily. You can see it with Ethereum. Ethereum is taking a bigger beating, right? $2,600. Ethereum fell off of a cliff. And that's why I'm happy we took the trade on the 1st of November on this channel, at least, where I converted altcoins or Ethereum to altcoins, right? At the freaking lows right here. And that's beautiful because I believe in ETH. Right? I know a lot of people probably will now think that ETH is dead again. I would say watch out with believing that stuff is dead. Crypto often proves you wrong. But eventually, I make more ETH. My altcoins are now worth more against Ethereum, so I can switch it back whenever I want. Right? But we bought here. I hope you took that kind of trade with me, though. And, you know, eventually I see it go to the range highs again. Probably take some profit in the meantime. But other than that as well, you could say like, well, you could have better sold for cash. Sure. In hindsight, like we could have all done it perfect. But the thing is that, again, I don't expect this market cycle to be over because I see no reason, really. And you could say like, oh, I'm now doing this for 12 years. I know what got to me. I know what wrecked me. I know what mistakes I made. I know what the sentiment is, the kind of indicator it is. I don't think that this cycle. So, and you can believe that. That's fine. That's all fine. I don't think so. So while taking this trade, I'm like, okay, at least I didn't write it down so hard because ETH got wrecked way more. It got wrecked twice as hard as alts, right? So it's also a hedge. I stayed having exposure in case it eventually goes up, but I'm also not writing it down as hard. And that's fine, right? You have to also, when you, I think in crypto, accept like there are periods when you write it down, right? And that's cool. At least if you didn't invest more than you are able or willing to lose, right? And for me, I'm like, yeah, look, my portfolio is free already. I cannot be in a loss. I cashed out a lot of shit and I bought a lot of stuff like that holds value around higher levels. So I'm like, even if I write it down now, 50%, which I don't think it will come that far, but who knows? I'm like, okay, temporary, yeah, sure. Like if you get caught up in the moment and you feel, oh no, then you're making yourself emotional about it. Yeah, you should not do that. You should not like, I look at the charts in the morning and at the evening maybe and doing some for TA, for the Alpha Factory, etc. But other than that, I'm not opening my portfolio a lot. Like why? Like it's not even that relevant in the short term. So I don't know. A lot of things look quite interesting right now. And another thing actually as well, well, that's for Blockchain Decoder. We're going to share that soon, so I'm not going to show that yet. But if you look at one other thing, the logarithmic regression band, this is also pretty cool. So this is how Bitcoin, it moves within that logarithmic regression band. You probably know that. We added a risk level to that. So the closer it is to the lower band, the lower risk. The higher it is to the higher band, the higher risk. And the risk is now 22%. Right? Well, it's not bad. Right? It's definitely a little bit, you know. Like, of course, it can always go lower. But then again, anyone who bought around 20% in the last cycles, the only thing that you have to do is have some patience, sit it out, go to a temporary loss, fuck it, whatever. And then eventually you win. You can better be long-term bullish than long-term bearish, right? On crypto, at least on Bitcoin, right? And altcoins, depends which one you have, but overall, that's really important to take your profits. And Bitcoin, put it on a hardware wallet and forget about it, I would say. But if you look at this cycle, right? We went into a bear market. We got to the logarithmic regression band, right? Then we went above it, and now we're going to touch it again and maybe going to go in it. Okay. Yeah, again, if you look at every cycle so far, right, for the people, again, that also like the 4-year cycle idea, we went into a bull market to the higher band. We went to the higher band. And you could say, well, Bitcoin is diminishing. This band is diminishing with Bitcoin, right? So that doesn't say anything. We eventually went to the higher band. We went to the higher band. Now we didn't even came close to it. We didn't even touch it this time. right? Why? Because the cycle isn't over, right? It's just like 2019. We got out of it, we went above it, we went low, 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 eventually got in it again, went above it, and then the euphoric stage came, right? And it looks to be a stretched version of that. And if that is the case, right, nobody knows, but I think it looks like that actually. If that is the case, then you should really ask yourself, like, okay, what if it is something like this, right? Forget about COVID for a while, right? Let's say this was without COVID at 6.5K or so, right? What if it is something like this? Yeah, you could say, like, where are we right now? We now have a 36% correction instead of 35 in the meantime, I think. But let's say 35% correction, right? I'm not saying that we will do the same as here, right? But let's say 35. We are now somewhere here, right? In hindsight, yeah, of course. Hey, you should have sold here, you should have bought back in here. Okay, cool. But at this moment, you don't know that, right? So what if you just were not selling here or even were buying here? Except, like, was that a bad thing? Like, yeah, you wrote it down. Like, you went from 9K all the way to 6.5K. Fucking wreck, you know? And then bam. Yeah. I always try to calculate, okay, like, what is the potential downside and what is the potential upside? And the potential downside, especially from this point, I feel like, I don't know, actually. I don't know. Who the fuck is selling, right? Who's selling right now? The ETFs, they have some outflows, but it's not like that spectacular, right? Of course, they also feel like, hey, they see the money. Of course, they feel like, hey, like I said, maybe they understand that whole idea about the self-fulfilling prophecy for the retail even better than I do. Maybe they have another reason and they feel like, okay, let's lock in some shit in the meantime. They made profit, let them take profit. Like, why can't they, right? These are people who invested and want to take profit. Why not, right? But other than that, who's selling? The retail that is now scared because of the dump. That's it. These are only people selling right now, right? The people that feel like, oh, 4-year cycle is over, right? And they want to watch it for a while, because I'm in some chats as well, and people, they said like, oh yeah, the top is in, but I'm still holding. I'm like, huh? Right? And they now feel like, oh, you see, it's getting confirmed. The top is in, 4-year cycle, and they are now selling. But it's actually fully panic selling, right? Because they have seen it go down. They now are like, oh shit, I knew the top was in. Why didn't I sell, right? These are the people now selling. Yeah, newsflash. We in this cycle by far did not have as much retail as in last cycle. So, of course, this panic selling eventually was a big domino effect. But I thought that according to these same bears, there was no retail here. So then the sell-off cannot get as far as bad as what we had over here. So for those who follow this channel because they think that I'm trying to try to time a bottom or a top or whatever, yeah, I have bad news for you. I don't. I DCA low levels in and I DCA'd it out. I did it all publicly. You can watch it back. It's all fine, right? But I like to not go with the herd. Whenever we had that meme coin euphoria right here, everybody said meme coin super cycle, and I said no, and got shit for that. Well, here we go. Memes are fucked up right now, right? When we before the halving made a new high, people said, it's a left translated cycle. Even your favorite YouTuber was talking about it. I said, no, it's not a left translated cycle. People were mad at me for that. Right? But it's what the herd is saying at the moment based on their feelings. Right? And now the only thing that drives this down, in my opinion, is some self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? People were in profit. Believe it or not, some people were in profit. And they are allowed to take it. And I am in the meantime like, of course, I'd rather watch it go up than down, but I'm also prepared for down. And I know that eventually that's where the real opportunity is sitting. Right? And I don't know how to explain it other than You know, if this was a bad thing, yeah, ask the people who bought here if this was a bad thing eventually, right? This is not a bad thing. This is a bad thing if you are not prepared for it, if you don't expect it, if you ride it all the way down with all being all in, and then it's a bad thing, right? But it's also what we need in order to make money. And that's what's happening right now. So to avoid confusion, I would say don't catch a falling knife, but definitely consider DCAing in rather than out during a correction like this. And often, again, the best trade is no trade. I can tell you that much. Another example before we wrap it up, I still have it here. Like with Wild World, right? Another coin that I've talked about earlier. Look at the trades I made. I wrote them down when I bought, when I sold. I bought. This was my catching falling knives. Fuck it. I'll be honest. It was not a great entry right here. But you also don't see any panic sells during this moment, right? I bought, and when it went down another 30%, I'm bought more. When it went down another, I don't know why, but 5%, I'm bought a little more. And then when it went down another 30%, I bought a little more. And then I just didn't do shit, right? I waited, and bam, that's where I take my profits. Free bag right there. Then went all the way down. I'm cool. Then I bought there. And then I waited again from March to like August to take my next trade, right? And then I made a buy. It was fucked up liquidity event. Well, luckily got this one right here and I sold it right here again. But that's what how I'm approaching a lot of coins. Right? It's not that I'm sitting here or trying to tell you that you should buy every 5% correction every day, right? The opposite. I said, like, make your purchase, do your sell, whatever it is that you want to do. And mostly just wait, right? Like, wait for it to play out. Ride it. You sold somewhere, right? Like, I did over here, because I expected to go down. Then I'm going to watch it go down. And that's it. Another example, I did it with Arrow. It's not as great as with Wild. This was fucked up. But still, after having my position, like average entry here, it took months, right? And eventually, tuck, I got out, right? With a large position. And now I can see it go down. I'm like, thank you. It doesn't mean that I'm going to buy right here, but I could. Right? It's twice as low as my last sell. Right? I'm now in the type of luxury position where I can look at it and be like, I have a free bag. If I do nothing and it goes up, then I'm cool, right? But if I do nothing and it goes down, then I'm also cool, because at a certain point I can decide, like, okay, maybe I want to get back in or not. And that's how you should approach your whole market in the first place. So I want to, again, I would say write it out if you are scared or if you are unsure, if you are like, just like, sometimes just don't do anything, right? That's how most people get wrecked, by doing too much. If you feel like, man, opportunity, I see the bigger picture, maybe you also look at the ISM, right? Because this is really like, this is showing me like, the fuck are we doing? We see that this is sitting at the lows. We see that rate cuts are coming, right? Not necessarily in December. Powell's going to get away. We see that QT is going to stop, right? The macro is getting slightly better and better. And in the meantime, people are selling. I'm like, what the, why? Right? So if you look at that picture, you might also be like, you know what, screw that bottom, screw that top, screw whatever where it might go. I'm gonna just get in, and if it goes lower, I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna wait, and it will be fine, right? And if I go down 30% in the meantime, so be it. And so be it. Try to let that go, right? That like, oh, I'm gonna buy. Oh fuck, next day is down. Never mind, I'm gonna sell. Like, nobody in crypto who got rich didn't go through losses first. People who, I don't know, eventually they with Bitcoin, they wrote it down, down. Here they were like, okay, nice, buy. Right? And then they wrote it down, bam, another 25%-ish. Terrible. Yeah, look, in hindsight, was that bad? Like, was pretty good. I don't know. So, yeah, that's the only thing that I can advise. Like, don't have emotions. And I think that everybody after this cycle that doesn't have emotions anymore. You will be great with relationships. But you will be great with crypto, at least. You can buy a new relationship. Doesn't matter. Again, where the local bottom is going to be, I don't know. I wish I could predict that. Again, according to the USDC and USDT dominance, tagged 382. So far now goes a little down there, but hey, it's a volatile day, so we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a point where we, maybe go back to this level right here. The Bitcoin gets a huge bounce. But then again, like at the moment, there's more panic than rationality in the market. So if people panic sell right through this, I will also not be surprised. So therefore, I'm saying like, hey, look, DCAing is the smartest answer, because that's the answer of people that say like, I don't know where the bottom is, or I don't know where the top is. But I know that for the first or the second step of the DCA process, this is a good level, right? But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this is kind of a local bottom for Bitcoin right now. But we'll find out. Yeah, and other than that, I would say just don't overcomplicate it, right? It's part of the game. But try to step away from the 4-year cycle theory. I really like to advise you that. And I know that's even harder to believe right now because, hey, right there, we went down. Yeah. But again, there are no reasons to believe in a 4-year cycle whenever you also look at the ISM, for example. Because again, that has been more accurate. Explain 2011, right? Like that wasn't 4 years. Explain why halving to halving is not every 4 years. Why bottom to bottom is not every 4 years. Explain why the ISM has marked everything, right? You cannot really deny that. And then look at it and yeah, you tell me, is this thing gonna tank, right? The only tanking possible is that we go into recession. That could happen, right? Just like here, where they printed the shit out of it. Or here, when they printed the shit out of it. No wonder that every single one of these recession spikes were so short-lived. So I'm like, the real sustainable downside is maybe this. Yeah, whatever, man, let it happen. That's fine, right? Like, I hope you're not in a rush. Because patience is, I think, the biggest enemy. But not the amounts that the market is down. Again, altcoins are not down as much as they were in 2017 or 2021. Like, by far, they are not. And we survived that. So, all good. Thanks for watching. Like the video. If you like the video, subscribe, turn the bell notification on. See you soon.